praise Him and lift Him up and hear what He has in store for each and every one of us this morning. We thank Him for His continuous mercy that He continues to afford us every day. We continue to give Him thanks because He gave us life and He gave us strength. So Lord, we thank You. We bless Your name. Lord, we lift You up. Father, Lord, You are the most high God. Father, Lord, we exalt You, Lord, way beyond, Lord. But Lord, ourselves, Lord, can not, Father, You deserve, Lord, glory way beyond way what we can give You, Lord. We give, Lord, our everything unto You, Lord. So, Lord, we come before You, all of our pure hearts, Lord, all of our hearts, Lord, to give You worship, to give You praise, to give You honor, Lord, to sit, Lord, and hear, Lord, from Your throne, Lord, from Your man servant, Lord. Father, we take this time, Lord, just for You, Lord, prioritizing our relationship with You, Lord, to come, Lord, and dwell, Lord, among Your saints, Lord, to give You praise together, Lord, in one accord, Lord, when we stand, Lord, Father, Lord, with our hearts tied up, Lord, with lust, Lord, envy, Lord, malice, Lord, hate, Lord, anything that is not of You, Lord, Father, cause us, Lord, to put it aside, Lord, and come before You with a pure heart, Lord God, to just glorify Your name, Lord God. Everything that You do, Lord, just, Lord, take charge, Lord, Father, over this whole atmosphere, Lord. We bless You, we thank You, and we honor You, Lord. So we bless Your name, Lord. And we invite the worshipers to come as we get into the time of worship. We all stand as we take the time of
hands together and bless the Lord and praise us, take our seats in the house of the Lord today. More than nothing, giving him glory and blessing him indeed for his grace and his glory and his pleasure that he has enabled us to come together one more time in his house to meet corporately and bless his name as he has enabled us. And we are so grateful to embrace the opportunity. We are so grateful to take advantage of this moment as we show appreciation for it in all aspects of it, as it were. And we want to just look to the Word a little bit as we continue to embrace the opportunity and the so we want to just look at, I'm not sure if we have the slide, yeah, okay, great. Yeah. I thought today, when I was thinking about how we should celebrate this moment one more time, where we are going to have to separate from each other again. So this being one of the moments where we have come to the point one more time in our experience where we will not be privileged to meet with each other in this setting or in this amount, this bunch, in this individual face-to-face interaction for a moment again. And in light of that information coming in last night, I thought I would just chat with you in relation to that, and just for a few moments, as I would think, not much to say on that, but some stuff that I want to just leave with us and kind of encourage us as we go into our partial lockdown, as it were, in our country, and as the world is experiencing one more time. So I want to talk to you a moment on the spiritual side effects that can occur. The spiritual, when I say side effects, I want to speak about the spiritual things that can occur with us, activity as well as emotions, as well as actual lifestyle that can occur, that can interfere with us positively and negatively when we go into these separations and these lockdowns and these absence of seeing each other and so on. So I want to just touch on that briefly and help us to go away with some information that could benefit us and that we would want to look at when we go into our situation, as it were. Before I go into the spiritual side effects or the spiritual aspect of it, I just want to remind you about some physical and emotional aspects that takes place when situations become like this and change a whole lot. Just looking at it generally, we know that when things change as drastic and as sudden and as general as this COVID experience would have brought us to, when things become when this sudden change impact our lives so much, that we were really not prepared for, that we didn't plan for, that we didn't really expect. No one knew that when 2020 began, that this sudden change would be upon the human race, upon the world, upon the entire world, as it were, and particularly in our nation. No one expected that this would happen or that this would occur. And so we already have challenges with adjusting to change as human beings, minor changes, from even going in one door or changing a seat in the church. Those changes affect us in such a way. Much more for these major changes that will take place in our lives when this COVID takes place, where we had to change our communication style, change our eating, change our going out, change our social life, change our economic life, change our physical interactions. We had to change drastically. And it was not something of choice, really, that came upon us. It happened suddenly, and all of us had to naturally respond to that change. And changes always have effects on all of us. There's no way that we can undergo a change and be the same. Some statements say that there's only one thing that's constant, that will always happen, that will always be there with us, and that is change. But when changes occur, there are always effects, side effects, consequences that follow every change that come in our experience, that come in our domain. There are physical and emotional changes that we would have been familiar with when we got information about this lockdown, and I just pulled some stuff there from statistics and from the net that would remind you of certain changes that take place physically, that took place. Many changes took place, but these are just some of them. The fact that just on the 3rd of May, this thing started pretty much in January, spread through the world kind of way in March. And by May or so, which is just about 3 or 4 months after the impact of it, we already saw in cities that were, those big cities that are heavily polluted, that the pollution levels across the world slowed down and changed drastically because of this change, because human beings were not interacting or not spreading, the industries were not operating, things were not happening. And so the world was almost a cleaner place in those moments. And right here in Trinidad, the rivers that are time to breathe, the beach, the oceans, the forestry, the everything of nature, that where human beings were not treading, were not interfering, were not polluting, were not endangering. I'm sure the forests, the fishes, everything got a chance to replenish themselves, to breathe again, and to look healthy again. One benefit that took place when the human activity slowed down, became less involved in nature. That could turn out to be a benefit. A benefit. And in some places, like we are saying there in that statement, animals started to roam freely again across the world, the oceans. Since there were reductions of vessels and reductions of human activity in general, the nature and natural life got an opportunity to breathe and to express themselves and to become free and to be active. That was one of the positive sides that the lockdown had on nature. But we know too well that while nature was thriving and benefiting from this lockdown, we had the same human beings who were absent and who were in the actual lockdown in their homes and in their spaces. The effects of that change was kind of drastic, and still is kind of drastic on the human psychology. So that we saw increased psychological stress happenings in homes and families and not even workplace, because there wasn't so much of that happening. There was including low mood, insomnia where we could hardly even sleep and irritability has increased, stress and anxiety, emotional exhaustion, depression. A number of cases we would have heard reported that when families and homes had to go into lockdown and into isolation, that because of this drastic change that took place in the home, anxiety levels rose in many homes. Mood and interactions among the people that were not accustomed to this 24-hour in-your-face interaction in the home created some stress and anxiety in many homes. You'd have heard about that. Where in some cases domestic aggravations, domestic conflicts increased. Because when in some families or in some cases, when you are not accustomed to always be in the face and in the space and in the area together for so long, and there is no outlet for that you're accustomed in some cases, particularly, I'm not sure if that's said so, but in one of the readings I was reading, they said that the men were more affected because they needed this outlet, this avenue for escape more regularly than the women. So men go out, and some number of them are in the bars, are in the rum shops, are in the savannas, are in the outdoor activity, doing something. It's not only because they want to get away from the family, but because they need that escape. And so when that is not happening because of this lockdown or because of this confinement, it will create some mood adjustment. It will create some anxiety levels, some conflicts, some connections rubbing against each other continuously. And those are the emotional effects that lockdown can create. And while we have to be mindful of those, and we want to be very, very careful of how we manage those in our families as we go into another season of lockdown again, I want to more focus on the spiritual effects of what this can also do for us. So look with me quickly at some things that can happen spiritually to you and to me when we don't come together and fellowship like we do. When we have a situation when we stay at home and listen online to our services. When we have situations when we don't fellowship and connect with each other. When we are this sudden and drastic change in our behavior becomes an activity that we have to engage in and becomes our new norm. When this happens, we must be aware of the possible effects that this can have on our spiritual life. And I thought to think on it or to draw those examples from the angle of several 5 points that I really want to share or bring out the experience from. The first one I want to speak about is that as a person with your spiritual life, that element of time and individual time has an important role to play, in your spiritual development as a person. You must agree. And in a lockdown situation or in a confinement situation, the first thing that is strongly in your face is that you have a whole lot more time available to you and to me. A number of pastors, when you read through certain comments of pastors and so on the gadget, would speak to the fact that when their church went into this mode of lockdown, several things happened with the believers with regards to how their time was managed. When you have church or when you have normal happenings in your church life, and if you're a person involved or active in church, You have a schedule, you have a time frame that you work with, you have a commitment, you have a obligation somewhere inside of you. You know that your life kind of circles and borders around the church and meetings and getting together and coming together and so on. Whether it is Monday night, Wednesday night, Sunday, whatever time, you have several obligations that confines you, that interferes, of course, and makes your whole lifestyle different. But when that goes out the window suddenly, not only is there a physical adjustment, the fact that you don't have to put on any clothes and dress up and come out the road at 11 or at 7 or at any time, that is out the door. And that space and those times are now available to you quite easily and freely and quite conveniently. Now for some folks, and this is really information I'm talking about here, will relate to each person's differently. Depends on how you respond to your time and how you deal with your individual times and so on. But to some folks, that space that has now been created with some extra time, no active church happening, means that I can now fill that space, or I can now adjust that space in my life with two things. One, I can continue the spiritual nourishment or the spiritual benefit that I would have gotten in that space by coming to church and connecting and being here. I can continue that individually. It will not be the same, but I can try to continue it individually in my home or in my space or in my individual place where I am. Or I can naturally, the other natural reaction to life is that I can just let it pass because it has become now empty, available space that I can just continue doing what I used to do or whatever activity I am doing at the moment, just continue doing it. For example, if I'm usually in church at 11 or I'm usually in church at 10 or whatever time your church begins, wherever you are, and you know that it adjusts and it affects your whole process in terms of where your Sunday goes. However, if that time suddenly becomes no longer an obligation, you can do several things. You can decide, well, I can stop my life again at 11 and start my worship or start my spiritual development that I would have gotten in church when I come. I could deliberately do that, which will be a decision that will require some discipline and some deliberate action. Or I can just continue doing what I'm doing, whether I am cooking or washing or working or cutting or eating or whatever I'm doing, and let that time pass, and some other time I may seek to engage in some spiritual activity, read my word, or probably hear from some preacher or something like that. You can do that. That is a natural human thing to do. A number of times, the natural human thing to do is to relax when there is convenience to relax. When there is the opportunity and the space to be uninterrupted, we kind of want to gravitate towards that, except we discipline ourselves. It's like everything else. If I don't have to exercise, I wouldn't bother to go out the road and walk or to go along in the gym and lift weights and all kind of those things. If I don't have to do that to survive or to live or to be healthy, then I wouldn't bother. If I could be healthy and could be normal without doing all of that, then I wouldn't bother to do it because that I could always do something that I enjoy, that is nice, that is easy or different. So a number of times, doing what we have to do for a benefit sometimes require a deliberate, disciplined kind of lifestyle and effort. And I'm saying that when we have more time on our hands and things are so liberal and free and convenient for us in terms of our space, our spiritual obligations, of which church will have naturally filled that space so nice and beautifully and convenient. Look how beautiful it is and nice you feel this morning when you could come together and meet each other, connect, sing with each other, see each other, join together in worship by yourself. Yes, you may have some worship by yourself, but there is a difference in worshiping by yourselves and connecting with each other. There's a huge difference. And so, when if this becomes the norm, or this becomes the convenient, easy way out, then we can find ourselves missing this element of spiritual input, spiritual impact in our lives that we could become easily accustomed to, and it could easily be replaced by something normal and convenient. That's one of the things that could happen when we are not in this kind of lockdown situation. When we are, sorry. Look at the several things that happens when there is no interactive church meetings. A number of things can happen. You may be aware of them, but we are just highlighting them to show you what we probably may not be thinking of is going on. Remember when we don't have active church meeting, whether it is praying together, whether it is singing together, meeting together, whether it is a house meeting by somebody, whether it is an open air meeting in the streets, whatever form, when that has been changed, when that is no longer available to us, that takes away with us several things that we have become attached to. That takes away with it several things that we use and that we have that drives us to grow and to encourage. Look at the several things that is happening. Remember, there is no avenue for literal sharing anymore. You could leave your home and come with an anticipation, and I'm going to share my voice, I'm going to share my expressions, I'm going to share my music, I'm going to share my things with people here together in a meeting. That is an important thing inside of a church meeting. Instead of being an active participant, which you are now in church, sitting down listening to me for this, whether we have church for 3 hours or 2 hours, whatever church is. You, when you put on your clothes and you leave and you come to church, you are an active participant in the church service. And that you are here, when it's time to sing, you get up and you sing, you participate in the songs, you testify sometimes, you share your energies and your time. You are part of an active activity, as it were. When that is no longer available and you have to just put on a telephone, put on a phone or put on a laptop and view somebody preaching at you, or view somebody singing, I'm not saying at you, you could probably with or at you, there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference. You are no longer a very active, involved participant. And certain emotions and certain areas of your being will not be touched by that online disconnect, as it will. You're in your home and somebody preaches. There's a difference in that really could interfere with your response to God. And I would like you all connect with what I'm saying. It can happen. I know for me it does happen. I know about you all. Cannot be a replacement of me watching a service as being in a service. There's a huge difference. And so, because that passive attention becomes, that can become a norm, that can become the way how you respond to a service, and responding to a service or to a meeting, a church meeting as it will, in that way could become a little different. I'm using that word cautiously. Not only that, when there is the absence of church meetings and you are locked down in your homes and you are now the priority and the length of your worship experience, and I'm saying worship experience here very loosely, meaning your worship experience where we come together corporately and we worship, has now become adjusted and is no longer a priority, as it were, in terms of I have to get up Sunday morning and be here at 11 and spend 3 hours with my people. There's a difference when it's now forget any time I could lie down and in my bed, man, go on my phone and listen, drop a sleep in between. There's a difference when it is not here with everyone. That could lead to some kind of what is the word I want to use here? to some kind of casualness in your in worship time and in that spiritual energy that you have gotten in those 3 hours, that could be reduced and become more watered down, become more less valuable to you, and more of a passive activity when you just have to view it on your phone. And so that can interfere with your spiritual growth. Why? Because church has a huge impact on your spiritual growth, as it were. Stay back there, go back there a little bit. There are some things I want to speak to there still. That last number 4 point, speaking about the human energies that we draw from each other, that's an important thing as well. That is absent when there is lockdown, when you are individually in your homes. There is an energy that we draw from each other when we come together. That cannot happen when we are online. You have to be aware of that. That energy, you know very well, yes, it may be something psychological, it may be something that may be mechanical, when we have to stand and minister. For example, if I'm ministering to, if someone is doing some presentation, and they presenting and sharing to a phone, it's different. If someone is presenting and sharing to individuals, looking at them and cooperating and connecting with them eye to eye, face to face, there's a huge difference. There's an energy that's different. And so, because that energy is different, the enthusiasm and the giving of your energies and time and preparation and so on could be, I'm saying will be, and I'm not saying has to be, but I'm saying could be affected, as well as the recipients of the whole process can be affected. I'm looking at the effects of this disconnect that could take place when we are locked down in our homes. And then, not only is the energies level that may be adjusted, but we're looking at adjusted time. Now, on top of energies being adjusted, time being adjusted could also affect the rate of your receiving of the spiritual benefits that come from church. Because if you are spending 10 minutes in something, and you are spending 100 minutes in something, the 10-minute process cannot compensate or give as much substance or value as the 100-minute process. And so, these things are factors that maybe not accounted too much, not maybe cited or probably identified, but we have to be aware that these adjustments are going to affect our response could affect our response to God and church and so on, and send us into a zone or into a normal that could be less than energetic, less than active, less than that could bring in some mechanical stuff inside of it that could affect us. I don't know if you're sure where we're going with this, but this is what I'm thinking. And the next thing is, when we are adjusted, and when we are locked down and we can't come to church as we want to, and meet each other as we want to, these two things are also affected. Our giving, our sharing, and our fellowship is adjusted. Adjusted. Could be adjusted. Not all these things could be adjusted upwards, but usually they tend to be adjusted downwards when we are in lockdown. What am I saying at this point? I'm saying that giving your time, your monies, your energies, and so on. A number of pastors, when we read on the gadget again, express huge loss in the economic aspect of the church. When we are in lockdown, monies flow less in the church, Because, well, sometimes for natural reasons, because a number of people are now out of work, a number of people are now redirecting their limited monies to what might now become priorities, toilet paper and vitamin C and COVID expenses, may go in that direction, so it no longer may be directed to church, and reality is taking place. And then the third reason could be that people are not venturing out to come to church, so that the fact that they are not venturing out to be in church and cannot venture out to come to church means that their monies are staying where they are, which is really at home. So there's an economic side to it that could interfere with the church as well. And not only monies, but the energies. You're sharing, you're giving, not only of monies, but you're giving of other things that you want that you have to give. Sharing your love, your attention, your actual physical helping and so on. It's no longer, remember, we are all locked and separated at home. And the element of fellowship, which is a strong spiritual element of growth. Through the whole Bible, the Bible encourages you, and I have some scriptures that's going to come down in the end of this presentation tonight, to fellowship with each other, to connect with each other as we do with God, to laugh with each other, to talk with each other, to share with each other, to encourage each other. That could be totally absent, or that could be affected. I should not say totally absent because we have these gadgets to do that. But you will understand that putting a laughing emoji after a conversation is different to talking to somebody and showing them a smile. Not so? Or putting an LOL in the end of a conversation could be just a mechanical, automatic thing. As against seeing somebody and actually connecting with them and having a one-on-one conversation. And so, fellowships at different levels in church and out of church can be affected, can be challenged, can be adjusted downwards. That could affect our spiritual world. If that's the new normal, that could affect our spiritual growth. And so, number 4, the last thing. This is speaking to sometimes when sharing meetings with folks who are not churched and so on, speaking sometimes to what we may want to call evangelism, what we may want to call witnessing, or what we may want to call sharing. The fact that we are home and locked down, cannot move about, and we are very restricted in our movement could interfere with our sharing of the word process, which is a very vital step in spiritual growth. The Bible advises and tells us strongly that one of our responsibilities, one of our challenges is to meet, when we meet our people, when we meet folks that are not churched, to share with them. And again, we have the gadget that we can use to share. But again, I want to re-emphasize that the sharing and connecting with each other one-on-one when we meet on the football field, or when we meet in the taxi, or when we meet on the job, or when we meet on the road, when we meet out there out of the church, that sharing of the word and sharing of our experiences of what God did for us and we brought us through this and kind of experiences are different. Different when it's one-on-one. When we can see the person and connect with them. And so, it might be that might be limited as well when we are locked down, when we are not able to express ourselves as we would want to as Christians. And sometimes when we are unable to share our experiences, it could become confining. It could become a little discouraging sometimes, depends on what it is. Sharing your experience helps to build each other, helps to change lives, helps to build faith and encouragement in many cases. And that could be adjusted as well. There's a certain spiritual strength and energy that you get when you share the word. When you relate to somebody, when you witness to someone, everyone in here would be acquainted with that experience. And if that has been adjusted or cut down or unavailable, then that could interfere with our spiritual. What's the next one I was added? So I will just share with you briefly, quickly, some solutions that we can probably engage in. These are some of the things that can affect us, but I want to just leave some solutions quickly that we can engage in, that we can remember, because I don't want to leave on the negative aspects of lockdown. I want to highlight some things that we can do that can be beneficial. One is that we can remember the word that speaks about soberness, watchfulness, and diligence in the last days. The Bible says that in the last days, and that's pretty much the days that we are living in, we have no idea how complicated and how more prolonged and all of that the situation will be. But the Bible did speak to us and say that in the last days, because of the intensity of change, and not positive change so much, but negative change, because of that intensity, that we have our eternal responsibility to do those three things. So in the face of our possible, because it's not going to be real and true for every one of us hearing me, but it's possible for some that the spiritual effects of the lockdown might be devastating, might be more thorough for some than others. And so, because that is possible, we have solutions that we can run to. One, manage that sober, watchful aspect of your life. And what does that take? That cannot take a passive approach. That has to take a deliberate approach, so that all the spaces where the spiritual development used to take place in your life has to become now a point of replacement with spiritual things. And it might be better in your interest, it might be better in my interest, not only to replace those spaces, but also to increase the spaces, because we have more time on our hands. So I'm thinking, all of these times when we cannot be in church, when we cannot connect with each other, when we cannot visit each other, when we cannot face-to-face contact with each other, replace those with similar spiritual activity that might involve calling, that might involve praying, that might involve meeting, that might meeting not necessarily face-to-face, but meeting on the phone, but meeting on the phone and encouraging each other. As the Bible says in Hebrews chapter, that scripture didn't make it, as in Hebrews chapter, it says encouraging one another and keeping in touch with each other to make sure that we are not experiencing not only the physical effects of COVID, but the spiritual effects as well. We have to maintain our thoughts, as the scripture says. Go back here. That's a deliberate action. That cannot be a casual passive action. That's a deliberate thing. There is no way in this world that you can be not deliberate and maintain this level of thought in your life. There is no way in this present world, as soon as you get up in the morning, the music, the entertainment, the information, the stuff, the news you are hearing has nothing to do with those things there in Philippians 4:8. They are all opposite to that. So for your thoughts to be influenced by those things, it has to be a deliberate, anti-social, anti-normal behavior to put those thoughts in your mind and keep them there. So it has to be a deliberate action. Church would have helped you do that. Like you see, you're in church now for about 3 hours, 2 hours, it would have helped. But the fact that those are absent now, there is a whole lot of individual responsibility that comes on us now to make sure that. Next thing is that we have to seek to develop and maintain fellowship with God and His people. I kind of like spoke to that already, where I said we have to make extra efforts now, not only to stay connected physically with our families, but the fact that there are other people who will be in needs, who will have emotional needs, who will have financial needs, who will have psychological needs, who will have physical needs. The fact that we're not meeting and seeing them every time has to know, we have to increase now the connections to make sure that they are handled, that they are taken care of, not only in their physical, but in their mind as well, and in their finances and so on. That's the responsibility that's going to have to increase to make sure that that happens. And not only that, that the fellowship, meaning the connection. When I say fellowship, I'm speaking to the fact that we are connecting with each other on a level of how we are motivating each other to grow, motivating each other to keep on walking and to keep on striving. And the last thing I think it is, is to take individual responsibility for your walk with God. That last point. And I think that's one of the most significant thing that I want to start with saying. This has always been our most important responsibility in everything that we do. And this is an important point that we need to take. Take that individual so that in the presence or in the absence of your pastor, your group leader, your parents, your sibling, your wife, your husband, take individual responsibility for your walk. Because you know you are going to be affected by the lockdown. You know you are going to be adjusted by what happens around you, by that shift and change in time and moments and so on. But now nobody should have the responsibility to monitor you, to trigger you off, or to sensitize you. Yes, we want to encourage each other, but if in the event that doesn't occur, the responsibility becomes whose own? Yours. Take that individual, because at the end of the day, the scripture says what? Each of us will give what? Each. So God will not say to you, you cannot say to God, well, you know, COVID came and I was in lockdown and I really had to go in this situation. That will be between you and God. But there is an individual responsibility that we have to take that would inform us and that would propel us to go beyond what we would pretty much become relaxed in if we run with the challenges of the lockdown. So I believe that's the last thing. I believe that is what I came up with this morning to share with you all. When I thought about the fact that we will be absent from each other again, and that the whole world is going through this process where we are now moving from social to individual. And that could be that's not too healthy, it's not too nice. Emotionally, physically, financially, it's not good anyhow. But spiritually, could be dangerous. And so I thought to share with you today how we need to benefit and how we need to take note, be aware of the effects that it can have on us and the solutions at the end that we need to do. So you can always check it back, view it again, see it, and be aware. If you find yourself being affected by the effects of this experience, it's a good checkpoint to say, well, look, I can always check back and say, let me take responsibility and go further and go harder, as it were. I mean, by you stand as we pray and look to God. I want to invite the pastor to come and probably do the closing and the adjustment at this time.
Thank you so much. We will have been open to what I call good advice for us and good instructions, understanding the reality and being able to do what is absolutely necessary to keep yourself safe and well. The present season is one that is going to also determine how well we will have as the church. The ministry in itself will prepare you for moments like these. Because you walk really after we've done what we did in the church here. Walk really, as the preacher says, an individual thing. And that determines how you will be able to live your life outside of what we call the environment where you have a number of people with you. So good, strong, nice advice. From next week, God's willing, it's just to remind you, we are going to be online in terms of our meetings. We will do, I churches will more or less, as I said, be shut down, but we are going to have just 5 persons doing meetings with you. But that's the congregating, of course, is limited to 5, so 5 persons will come together and do what is necessary to keep you in that place where you need to. And I also would like to remind you, all of the things that he has highlighted there is affected with how we operate and function. So as it relates to fellowship, we have the means. As it relates to your finances, there's a procedure that we have had before. There's a treasurer. You who want to be faithful to pay your tithes and your offerings, there's a treasurer. You know where he lives. And you leave what you need to leave there so that you can be faithful to those things as it relates to them. So 10 a.m. every Sunday, we will have a live program coming 10 a.m. And we don't want you to be, should I say, occupied with all of the stuff at that time and have your attention divided. 10 a.m. is a time when we still meet, but we'll have what you call virtual meetings, where we meet online, 10 a.m. every Sunday morning. And 7 p.m. on a Friday, 7 p.m. on a Friday, we'll have the same kind of meeting. We'll have a time of prayer happening on a Friday, 7 p.m. until such time that the state gives us the freedom to do what we need to do. I trust that you will keep your spirits right, keep your heart in the right place, take the advice that we will have received today. I don't know how many of you just know this song.